So, in regards to the Middle East, particularly Syria, a trending political topic worldwide, do you believe that the U.S. and other nations should open the doors to Syrian refugees? Why or why not?
Well, internationally, it's part of the what you call international law to allow refugees to move from one particular country to another. Quite frankly, in Africa, we have the largest number of refugees because of many wars. Even as I speak, the crisis in Darfur has actually erupted again. Yes, but again, it has to be properly organized.
Could you define properly organized?
That is, they have to go through a normal process, not quite frankly, even though I am a human rights activist and a scholar as well, I still believe that they should, for instance, be well vetted, and that they should, of course, they do now, but in other words, given what has happened recently with respect to the exodus of refugees from Syria to Europe, I would have preferred that it was handled better than it is being handled now. That is, in fact, with the new arrangement between Europe and Turkey, they seem to be much better right now. But I can understand initially there was that pandemonium, that desire to leave immediately. But I think it's getting much better now, the process.
Okay. So, with that in mind, do you think Syrian refugees are beneficial or detrimental to the society?
Not really. As I said, it's part of international law. Quite frankly, countries like Germany, for instance, they need more labor because they're not, the population, of course, it's not sufficient to deal with the issues that Germany will eventually face. That was why the Chancellor, for instance, called for about 800,000 right away because they need the labor force. So, in a sense, it's okay. It's just that generally you find that those who leave, those who are not, and not the upper class, not even the middle class. These are usually those that belong to the middle class who want jobs. As you can recall, or as you will recall, there are quite a number of them that have left not because they are having problems, but because they need jobs, quite frankly, particularly those from Afghanistan and Pakistan. That's joined the group.
All right, hi, I'm Megan Saxton. I am a junior criminal justice major and a minor in sociology here at App. I've always been interested in law enforcement. I'm interning with the FBI over the summer in hopes that after that I'll go federal and we'll see where it goes.
All right, thank you. So, I have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
First one, how do you think the media affects the way citizens perceive law enforcement officers?
I think the media has a really, I think the media negatively shows the whole aspect of law enforcement. Sure, there's a lot of good that law enforcement does. Of course, there's a lot more good than bad, but there's those few bad apples that that the media just kind of targets, and unfortunately, that's what a baseline of how the police are perceived. And so when people turn on the TV and they see, oh, this police officer did this, I know this police officer did that, then often the negative attitudes just consume the mind of the people, and they just treat the police not the way they should be treated.
Cool. Thank you. All right. How are the lives of these law enforcement officers influenced by their work and the dangers that follow?
Okay, there's a lot of negative side effects that are associated with law enforcement officers. I'm actually writing my junior paper on that for my writing in CJ class. I mean, there's everything from depression to relationships that suffer and your family life that suffers, and you have everything from the sleep patterns from where officers have 3 nights on, they do 12-hour all-night shifts, to where they don't have proper relationship with friends and stuff because they don't ever have time to hang out. And then there's everything from alcohol abuse is a big one. because the culture around law enforcement, a lot of people don't know this, but like alcohol is heavily associated with like law enforcement in the way that officers like de-stress from the job, so to speak. I mean, and officers are kind of always on the job in a sense because they're always, looking out for the community. Even if they're not on duty, they kind of feel like they have this role to like still help out if they see something. And so, I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of suicide is a big epidemic that's, starting to plague officers. And I mean, it's unfortunate, but we need to put in like proper interventions to help out and everything just because, I mean, these people do so much for us. It's time for us to like start doing something for them. So,
Agreed. Cool.
yeah.
All right.
Graduated from Florida State with a master's in criminology, was a police officer in Hickory for 20 years, was chief of police in Boone for 10. I've now taught at ASU. This is my 6th year in the criminal justice field.
Cool. Thank you. So I have a couple quick questions for you. First one, how do you believe the media affects the way citizens perceive law enforcement?
Well, it's interesting now because media includes social media, and I think that has had a real impact on perception. It should impact citizens' perceptions because now you see it. You see the activity. For years, members of the African American community said, the police are mistreating us, and treating us poorly, and it just didn't get any traction. Rodney King video happened in the '90s, and people said, "Oh wow, this is what's going on," and so it really has forced us to confront some of the actions that police have taken that haven't sort of been on the forefront before. One of the things that worries me some is that many people will see those sorts of videos or read those sorts of allegations of misconduct, and they extrapolate that to the norm. That happens all day, every day, that all police officers do that. There's 800,000 police officers, and if 5% of them are just horrid human beings and do crappy stuff, that's 40,000 people, and so, in my experience, 95, maybe over 95% of police officers are good people who want to do the right thing, and that can get overshadowed by the bad things that police officers do. Having said that, it's good to expose the bad things that police officers do because very often in the past that was brushed under the rug, and we need to deal with police misconduct more effectively.
All right, wow, thank you.
All right, so the question says ISIS is on the rise. Do you believe that the U.S. should step in and disband a terrorist group? Why or why not? I think the question kind of answers itself right there with saying ISIS is on the rise. I mean, they're a terrorist group. They're violent people, and the United States they embrace violence, and that's one thing that makes our military so strong. And you can see foreign-wise in Europe with terrorist attacks, and you even got domestic terrorist attacks like Fort Hood, 9/11, huge one, thousands of people gone, causing this whole Middle East crisis, and I guess you could even say the rise of these terrorist groups. Then you have San Bernardino, small shootings, and those are just becoming more and more common with this terrorist group on the rise. And we have a pack of hungry wolves in the United States Army, and they want to eat. They're starving. They're hungry. Let's feed them. Let's go. If the U.S. disengaged from key areas in the Muslim world, would the threat of terrorism rise or fall? And this is an easy question, because it's already happened in history. We've had the United States where we had the Iraq invasion in northern Iraq, 2003, 2004, 2005, 06, 07, 08, 09. Started to pull out about 10 and 11, and you got the rise of ISIS. It's huge. I mean, last question was ISIS is on the rise, and that's because of our disengagement from our presence in Iraq. And you've got the Syrian crisis, refugees coming over because of Assad and Obama's lax policy, where he's talking about if Assad uses chemical weapons, there's going to be prices to pay. And then Assad used chemical weapons, there was no price to pay. We've got Putin making the United States look like little babies over there because they're helping Assad out. And, terrorism's rising because the United States isn't engaged enough. Alright, so the question is, should the U.S. open doors to Syrian refugees, why or why not? And if you take a glance at Greece, and you see their current political state where they have no running hot water and too many refugees coming in, it's obvious that the United States shouldn't open their doors to Syrian refugees. I mean, look at Europe, you got people blowing shit up all the time, people dying, sorry for cussing. it's not worth it. The risk is outweighing the reward there. You know, it sucks what they're going through with Assad, but part of that's to blame on Obama as well and his real lax foreign policy.